Now, it's quite a big focus on trade in the continent as South Africa's launched to commence the preferential trade under the African Free Continental Trade Area, a guided trade initiative, and the 13th Council of Ministers meeting. And this, of course, is quite a significant step, and it happens this week. Tshepo is here to tell us why we should all care, especially where some nuclear parts have been, because you've seen processes start, but then things delay, and then things are seemingly picking up again. So let's talk about this now with our economics editor, Tshepo Mongoai. Tshepo, it's been quite the journey. You know, one laughs when you think about this, but it's quite an important story. We've been talking about the African Free Continental Trade Area, and some are seeing it as a possible game changer as far as trade and industrialization is concerned around the continent. But we've seen progress, we've seen stalling, we've seen delays, we've seen quite a lot happening. What has been going on behind the scenes to lead us to this particular moment?
Well, I think it's a good moment, but it follows a lot of tough negotiations behind the scenes. We know that in terms of our arrangement that we have within SACU, as the 5 SACU members, we have to find a common ground, especially on line tariffs. And that's where negotiations stalled, that agreement. And remember, currently, the agreement that was endorsed by the AfCFTA, Africa Continental Free Trade, involves 90% of the items. You still have 10%, which is regarded as sensitive products that the members within SACU could not agree. So we have an arrangement that all trade arrangement must be done through the SACU arrangements. So none of the members should actually go outside the SACU. And obviously, when you have a multiplicity of interest within the region, things can take a lot of time before an agreement can be reached. We still have the issue of the sugar issue, for example. That there's no agreement in terms of its involvement in the Africa Free Trade Area. We have the other issues that have also not been agreed, like the automotive industry. That also has not been agreed, and that's a space that needs to happen. And what we have seen is that during those negotiations, you had a lot of back and forth in terms of accusations that were made that South Africa doesn't want the clothing from the other SACU members, and that's one area of sensitive area that is also not included in this current agreement that we are celebrating.
So then, what does it all mean then for this agreement if you have all of these members? Yes, disagreements are good, but at some point there's got to be common ground despite the disagreement. So what does it all then mean for how they forge a way forward if they're still disagreeing over these things?
Well, the decision was that let's unite on areas that there is agreement, areas that we can make progress, and leave out some of the issues that we cannot agree on, so that the region is able to go to the Secretariat and be able to submit so that we can start trading. And indeed that happened. So the agreement was endorsed. All other SACU members now can trade under the Africa Free Trade Continental Area. South Africa, of course, our agreement has been gazetted by the Ministry of Finance. So we are going to see its implementation happening. Last year, around September, the Department of Trade and Industry launched a roadshow to go to length and breadth of this country so that people are aware and can take up opportunities that can unfold because of this arrangement. Unfortunately, if you look at the companies that will be taking part in this first leg are well-established companies. The Parliament had actually instructed the Department of Trade and Industry to find even smaller companies. But unfortunately, you have Hisense, DeFi, that I can remember that are taking Grind Media South Africa. There are about 5 companies that will be shipping their goods outside the country under this preferential arrangement.
Now we're here. What happens then this week?
Yeah, we will see some of the goods that will be shipped. We'll get a list of those goods that will be leaving the country under this, and hopefully during the launch, which would happen on the 31st, we'll get to speak to some of the participants, Tiger Brand being one of them, of course, and you could actually get a sense that some of these companies, they've been doing this thing for quite some time, but of course, what happens is that they will have access to more markets, like in the eastern side of the continent. It's been very difficult where ECOWAS is to penetrate, especially for South African companies. They've tried. There are a lot of opportunities, but they just could not enter those markets. Now, through this preferential arrangement, they will be able to expand into other markets. But of course, we also need to bring in smaller guys.
Yes.
And I think that's where a lot of work still need to be done. I don't know, is it requirements are quite stringent to make it easier for smaller companies to take part? I think that's one area of focus.
And I suppose it also raises questions because, Tshepo, if these smaller players often complain about the red tape that they get to experience here at home, then they go again trying to expand and trying to grow their businesses, continue to experience that same red tape. Then one asks the question, where is the Ministry of Small Businesses, Business and Development to try and assist them to also be able to take part in this particular aspect of the economy, because it's also critical for job creation?
Yeah, it would be very interesting also to get a sense of what really happened during those outreach, or is just one of those that the formalities are done where they will talk about things that people don't actually understand, and then from there they will go back and say, well, we've done the outreach, we just want to get this thing happen. So yeah, I think maybe we're still in our early stages of this thing. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done. Infrastructure must be ready. Customs must be able to speak across the continent and the region itself as well. And you also need to establish contacts in the country that you're exporting into. So perhaps a lot of work can be done around that. But what is also quite interesting is that during these negotiations, we've seen countries putting up measures that actually inhibit trade and protections approach that was adopted by some of the country, and we've seen that South Africa was also accused of through the law that they passed, that they were not going to allow foreign drivers to drive South African registered trucks. Botswana also reacted. I don't know, it was because of that, but they also passed a law that makes it very difficult for people there, for foreigners also to work in certain areas, sectors of the economy. I mean, Namibia also came up with some restrictions in their economies, and that makes negotiations very difficult. And I think those issues are still lingering on.
And as they linger, one hopes that these are teething problems that can lead to solutions in the future. But thank you so much, Tshepo, and we'll see then what happens in that regard and all the questions that maybe some of you tonight have, especially when it comes to participation. What happens with small businesses in this regard? Tshepo will have all of those answers for you throughout the course of the week as we see the story unfold. That was SABC News Economics Editor Tshepo Mongoai.